Hey there, my name is Michelle. I was asked by a good friend of mine, who you guys probably know, to talk to you about what it's like to come from a military family, especially as we get closer to Veterans Day, which is in just a couple of weeks. So that's what I'm going to do. Like I said, my name is Michelle. I'm a military spouse. My husband Brian is in the Air Force. We have a young family. I have 3 little kids. Thomas is 5 and in kindergarten. Abigail is 3 and Marilyn is 1. And we currently live in Alaska, where it's very cold. It was 9 this morning. I think it's got up to maybe 25 right now. Still cold. But anyways, we're an Air Force family, living far away from our families. Our families live in Maryland, Virginia, and Florida, and in California, and maybe sprinkled along some other areas too. So we live far away from our families, but that's just part of the lifestyle. Anyways, we have lived several places. First of all, I should tell you that I was a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force, so I've lived overseas in Germany, on both coasts of the United States. I graduated from high school in Virginia. And then my husband also was a military brat. His stepdad was in the Coast Guard. His father was in the Air Force, and he too has lived on both coasts. He even lived in Alaska as a teenager. So it's a lifestyle that we're used to. That doesn't always mean it's easy. Matter of fact, it's very hard. But it's something that we're used to. So anyways, my husband, before we got married, enlisted here in Alaska. And then he moved to Washington State and then overseas to Guam. And after that, he moved to Florida, which is where we met. And then we got married. And after we got married, we moved overseas to the Azores Islands, which are Portuguese islands in the middle of the Atlantic. We moved back to Florida. And then we moved up here to Alaska. We're not sure if this is our last assignment or not. We're pretty close to retirement, and so we're not sure if this will be the end or if we'll keep going on our adventure, but at least that's where we are today. A little bit of background about my husband, Brian. He joined the military almost 22 years ago when he was just a baby. 17 years old, 17, 18 years old is young, and it's a big decision to make to join the military, but the decision he made was because he wasn't he didn't want to go to college at that point. He didn't want to pursue that at that point in his life. That's since changed, but not at that point, and he thought that would be a good avenue to make a career, a steady paycheck, health insurance. I mean, there's an enormous amount of benefits that come with joining the military, whether it's before you go to college or after you go to college. Certainly there's a lot to offer to anyone who joins the military. What does Brian do in the Air Force? His title is a structural engineer, which means that he's in the civil engineering world. Very early on in his career, he realized that he didn't really want to just maintain bases and maintain buildings, which is what a lot of civil engineering does, from the planning to the maintaining of it. He wanted to build because that's what his trade was. That's what his skills were. So early on in his career, he decided to put in for some special duty positions, which is different, has different missions, and brings you to different places, not just in the United States, but in the world. So that's what he did. He chose to be a part of different groups and squadrons where their mission took them away from home so that they could build. For almost his entire career, we've been at war in some capacity. The United States has, or we've been a part of countries who are at war. And so he has spent a great deal of time, even before we met, overseas, building, helping build bases, helping rebuild cities, villages, teaching that skill also to the local nationals so that they too can take care of themselves. So a great deal of his career has been spent with that mission in mind. The other part of his career and his time spent in the Air Force has been with humanitarian missions, which again has brought him to other places of the world, but to help people, building orphanages and schools and hospitals and renovating and building from the ground up. And that's what he's loved to do. In addition to that, he's an airborne engineer, which means that he went to an Army school, Fort Benning, and trained with the Army so that he could be airborne and jump out of airplanes, as crazy as that sounds, and add that to the mission that he can help accomplish. Brian, like I said, has spent a great deal of time deployed overseas, even before we met. Ooh, sorry. I didn't think I'd do that. So he, that's just part of his job, is leaving. I've lost count how many times he has gone TDY, which is basically a long business trip for the civilians in the world, or deployed. I think in our first couple years of marriage, we had only spent half the time together. Excuse me. But that's just the nature of it. Since we've had children, let's see, Thomas is 5. He's been on 2 deployments, 8-month deployments. So when Thomas was 3, just turned 3, Brian had already been gone for 16 months. 2 separate trips, 8 months and 8 months. And at that point, we also had Abigail. Actually, Brian had to deploy and leave when she was 3 weeks old. And so he said goodbye to us when she was 3 weeks old. And then he came home when she was 8 months old. So as you can imagine, as the military member, he missed a lot of milestones. We've since added our youngest, Marilyn, and she has not dealt with any deployments, just maybe some long trips, a month here, 2 months there, kind of thing. Being in the military or being a part of a military family is definitely not easy, regardless of how many times you do it or how long you've been doing it for. And it's actually no easier, maybe it's even harder for the military member, because they leave behind everything that they know, everything that's comfortable, everything that's theirs, and they go away. And sometimes they go away, well, I shouldn't say sometimes, oftentimes when they come home, things are different. Routines are different. Children are grown. They're not doing the same things as they were doing when they left. Spouses become more self-sufficient just by the nature of the beast. But it's the lifestyle. He's not always gone. He happens to be gone now, coincidentally, gone for 2 months. But we've been lucky here in Alaska because he's not been on any deployments. He's been on several trips, but we've been able to have him home. And frankly, that has been priceless because we needed a break from all of that. And it's been nice. I want to say this in closing, with Veterans Day coming up, and with the idea that many people across the United States think of our veterans on that day, oftentimes even write letters in support of our military members, thanking them for their service, applauding them for what they do. I should tell you that Brian and every other military member that I know greatly appreciates the fact that they're acknowledged and thanked, and what they do doesn't go unrecognized. So I hope you'll keep that in mind as we get close to Veterans Day, is that that kind of message that you send to any military member, whether they're home with their families or whether they're far, far away, really means a tremendous amount. So I apologize for crying. I apologize, but I hope you understand that it's not out of sadness. It's just out of for the love of what our military members do. So thank you so much. Bye.